Two women vanished from a convent overnight after a heated argument. A young nun tried to expose powerful wrongdoing, and by morning, both she and the Mother Superior were gone. No investigation. No search. Just silence for 10 years. Until a renovation uncovers something that was never meant to be found. And the real danger was closer than anyone ever imagined. If you think evil always announces itself loudly, this story will change your mind. On the surface, St. Aldwyn's convent was everything people trusted: quiet halls, gentle hymns, and women who had devoted their lives to God. But on one warm evening, behind locked doors and whispered prayers, a single argument cracked that image forever. A young nun threatened to reveal something powerful. A Mother Superior realized her authority was about to collapse. And by morning, both women were gone. No police tape. No search parties. No public scandal. Just silence. For more than a decade, the convent continued operating as if nothing had happened. New sisters arrived. Old routines continued. The chapel bells rang on time. And the truth, whatever it was, remained buried beneath obedience, fear, and stone. Until the same argument surfaced again. And this time, it did not disappear quietly. Before we begin, make sure you stay until the very end, because the final discovery inside this convent revealed not just who killed them, but how long everyone else had unknowingly protected a monster in plain sight. If stories like this matter to you, tap the like button, subscribe for more real-life investigations, and share this episode with someone who believes secrets can't survive forever. Now, let's step inside the convent that buried the truth for over 10 years. The heat refused to lift that evening at St. Aldwyn's convent. Sister Iolana Cade stood outside the private office of Mother Superior Verena Holt, her hands trembling beneath her sleeves. She had waited 3 weeks for this moment. 3 weeks of rehearsing words that could destroy a woman who had ruled the convent for nearly 20 years. The argument did not begin with anger. It began with disappointment. Iolana spoke quietly at first, her voice breaking as she accused Verena of hiding misconduct, financial manipulation, forced silence, and the quiet removal of sisters who questioned authority. Verena dismissed it as youthful confusion. But Iolana did not back down. She leaned forward and whispered the sentence that changed everything. "I have proof." The room went still. For the first time, the Mother Superior's confidence faltered. She asked who else knew. Iolana said no one, yet. She gave Verena until morning to step down. Or she would go outside the convent. That night, prayers were shorter. Doors closed earlier than usual. And somewhere behind those stone walls, a third woman listened from the corridor, motionless, her breath slow, her face calm. Someone who understood exactly what exposure would cost her. The bells rang at dawn. Sister Iolana never came to morning prayer. Neither did Mother Superior Verena. At first, the sisters believed it was an administrative emergency. Verena was known to summon Iolana for disciplinary meetings that lasted hours. But when breakfast passed and both rooms remained locked from the outside, panic quietly spread. A senior nun entered Verena's quarters. The bed was untouched. Her rosary lay folded on the nightstand. Her walking cane leaned carefully beside the door. Iolana's room showed the same strange order. No packed bag, no missing clothes, no letters. Just a notebook resting open on her desk, its final page torn cleanly away. By midday, the diocesan coordinator was contacted. But no police report was filed. The official explanation was simple: emotional distress. A mutual departure. A private spiritual retreat arranged urgently. The sisters were instructed not to discuss the situation. Not with their families. Not with the parish. Not with one another. 2 women had vanished without a trace, and the institution that promised truth had quietly chosen convenience instead. Only one person within the convent knew the real reason no search would ever begin. Because the search would end beneath their own floors. Sister Bridget A. Moore did not cry when the announcements were made. She sat still during prayer, her face soft, her hands folded neatly. She comforted younger nuns. She offered to take over administrative duties temporarily. Everyone noticed how dependable she suddenly became. Bridget had arrived at St. Aldwyn's only 6 months before the disappearance. She was older than most new sisters and rarely spoke about her past. But she worked closely with Mother Superior Verena, and quietly handled the financial records Iolana had never been permitted to see. On the night of the argument, Bridget had been awake. She had been in the archive corridor, supposedly cataloging donations. In reality, she heard everything. She heard Iolana threaten exposure. And she knew that if Verena fell, she would not survive the fallout either. The missing funds. The forged signatures. The silenced complaints. Verena was dangerous. But Iolana was fatal. Bridget understood something the others didn't. The truth wouldn't destroy just one woman. It would expose a system. And she was standing at its center. By morning, Bridget had already decided. If the convent required sacrifice to preserve itself, she would choose who disappeared. Iolana never made it past the garden path. Bridget approached her just after evening prayers, pretending to offer support. She told Iolana that Verena had agreed to meet privately in the maintenance wing to avoid attention. Iolana hesitated, but hope is powerful when you are trying to believe someone can still do the right thing. Verena was already there. Bridget had summoned her under a different lie, claiming Iolana was preparing to report the convent to civil authorities that very night. The meeting lasted less than 10 minutes. Voices rose. Fear replaced authority. And when Iolana reached into her satchel, Bridget reacted faster than either woman expected. The heavy utility hammer had been prepared earlier. The first strike dropped Iolana. Verena froze. The second strike silenced Verena forever. Bridget stood shaking, not in horror, but in disbelief at how easily fear became action. She wrapped both bodies in maintenance tarps. The renovation foundation trench, unfinished and unrecorded, waited only a few meters away. Before dawn, she filled the pit. By morning prayer, the earth had settled. And 2 women were officially gone. The months after the disappearances passed unervingly smoothly. Bridget stepped into temporary leadership roles and later became a permanent administrative authority. She controlled finances. She screened incoming sisters. She approved departures. And she quietly removed any document that hinted at Verena's earlier misconduct. The diocese never pressed for investigation. The convent's reputation remained intact. Families who asked questions received carefully crafted spiritual explanations. But Bridget never relaxed. She avoided the garden. She never walked past the maintenance wing. And she insisted no structural work be done near the older foundations. Her power depended on stillness, on nothing ever shifting beneath the surface. Yet inside her private journals, written in tight, disciplined handwriting, Bridget repeatedly returned to the same sentence. Truth survives patience. She believed that if she remained useful enough, obedient enough, indispensable enough, the past would eventually lose its voice. The sisters who had known Iolana began to leave one by one. New faces replaced old memories. And for 10 years, St. Aldwyn's convent stood peacefully above a grave no one dared to imagine existed. Until history prepared to repeat itself. Sister Lenora Pike arrived young, brilliant, and deeply uncomfortable with authority. Within a year, she discovered discrepancies in donation records while assisting Bridget with digital accounting systems. The numbers didn't align. Funds routed through shell charities. Forged authorizations. Private expenditures hidden inside renovation budgets. When Lenora confronted Bridget, the conversation felt eerily familiar. Bridget denied wrongdoing. Lenora calmly explained she had already saved copies of the data. She used the same phrase Iolana once had. "I have proof." That evening, Brigid felt the room tilt. The exact threat had returned. But Lenora was smarter than Iolana had been. She told two sisters she planned to escalate the issue if something happened to her. For the first time in over a decade, Brigid felt fear, not of exposure, but of witnesses. She could not make another body vanish. Not anymore. So she chose a different strategy. Delay. Renovation. Distraction. She approved long-requested structural upgrades to the maintenance wing, believing controlled construction would keep everything hidden forever. Instead, she unknowingly ordered her own unburial. The workers arrived quietly. The convent continued daily routines while drilling and excavation shook the foundations. On the third afternoon, a contractor's shovel struck something that was not stone, not pipe, not wood, fabric. The work stopped. The police were called. Within hours, a shallow, collapsed trench revealed two human skeletons wrapped in decayed plastic sheeting. Fragments of religious garments clung to the remains. One rosary lay tangled between rib bones. The discovery ripped through the convent like an earthquake. Forensic teams identified the remains using archived dental records. Sister Iolana Cade. Mother Superior Verena Holt. Gone for 10 years. Buried within the very institution that had claimed their disappearance was voluntary. News media descended on St. Aldwyn's by sunset. Brigid watched from her office window as investigators sealed the wing she had protected for over a decade. She understood instantly. The ground had spoken. And it had chosen this moment. Brigid was not arrested immediately. She was interviewed. Twice. Then 3 times. Her composure unsettled detectives. She answered politely, carefully, always logically, until Lenora provided the digital financial records, the missing funds, the forged approvals, the secret rerouting accounts created years earlier, long before Brigid ever claimed she gained authority. But the turning point came when forensic analysis revealed blunt force trauma on both victims. Different angles, different strikes, different reactions. It wasn't a single confrontation. It was controlled, planned. A reconstruction placed Brigid's documented location inside the maintenance wing that same evening 10 years earlier. When presented with a timeline, Brigid did not cry. She closed her eyes and said softly, "I protected this place." Investigators replied with one sentence. "You protected yourself." The confession came hours later. Not emotional, not dramatic, just precise. She described the hammer, the trench, the tarps, and the certainty that no one would ever look beneath holy ground. She had been wrong. The trial exposed more than murder. It revealed a culture built on silence, financial abuse, psychological coercion, internal exile for women who questioned authority. Iolana's missing notebook page was found hidden behind a false archive panel, listing names of sisters who had attempted to report misconduct before disappearing into transfers or forced resignations. Verena had maintained the system. Brigid had engineered its survival. The court heard how Iolana planned to deliver evidence to external oversight authorities the morning she was killed. Not the church. Not internal leadership. Outside. Beyond protection. The verdict was unanimous. Brigid Amor was convicted of 2 counts of premeditated murder and long-term financial exploitation. She received a life sentence. The convent was dissolved within months. St. Aldwyn's became a sealed property awaiting repurposing. No prayers were held on the final day. Only silence. For the first time in over a decade, the women buried beneath the floor were finally acknowledged. Not as spiritual casualties, but as victims. Lenora left religious life shortly after the trial ended. She said her faith had not died, but her trust in protected power had. A memorial plaque now stands at the edge of the former garden path. 2 names, 2 dates, and 1 line beneath them. Truth survives patience. The phrase Bridget once wrote to reassure herself became the very sentence used to remember those she silenced. Investigators later admitted that without the renovation project, the case would likely have remained buried forever. No witness, no confession, no ground disturbance, just obedient silence. What destroyed the crime was not bravery. It was repetition. The same argument, the same threat, the same belief that systems can survive without accountability. Only this time, the truth arrived with documentation, witnesses, and machines powerful enough to reach what hands had hidden. The ground did not forget. It only waited. This case reminds us of something deeply uncomfortable. Evil doesn't always hide in strangers. Sometimes it hides in structure, in uniforms, in authority that goes unquestioned long enough to become untouchable. For over 10 years, 2 women lay beneath the very place that preached morality, obedience, and protection. Their killer didn't flee. She didn't run. She stayed, rose in responsibility, and shaped the system that had allowed her to bury the truth. And the most frightening part? It almost worked. If you believe stories like this deserve to be told, not for shock, but for accountability, please support this channel. Like this video, subscribe for more deep dive investigations, and share this story with someone who still believes silence is harmless. Because silence protects systems, but truth protects people. And sometimes, the only thing standing between justice and a grave beneath our feet is one person willing to ask the same dangerous question again. Thank you for listening. Stay curious, stay uncomfortable, and never assume holy walls cannot hide human crimes.